What's up, guys and gals? My name is Eclepid, or John, here with...
Matt.
Yes, Matt. And
I keep expecting you to say my name for me. I don't know why.
this actually, this is the second time we're recording this part. We, got, like, 30 minutes through before realizing that we weren't actually recording. And for some reason, when we re-recorded this, we just opened it up the exact same way we did the first time.
Yeah.
So, I guess, if that's anything to say, this will go exactly the same too. And it'll be as if we didn't record this before already.
Let's do it.
Do you want to read or should I?
Actually, could I read?
Yeah, you read. Go for
Okay.
it. It should go
Alright.
now.
Got it. Jessica's woeful voice echoed throughout the rose garden. Perhaps it was the intuition of a person who lived on this island. After Jessica had looked in the rose garden where Auntie Rosa and Maria had fallen and seen nothing, she had gone to look in the arbor next. Excuse me. Normally, the arbor was probably a wonderful location to enjoy tea peacefully while appreciating the roses on a good sunny day. Who knows, maybe even Uncle Kraus and Aunt Natsuhi had their days where they relaxed and enjoyed tea together there. In that arbor lay the bodies of Uncle Kraus and Aunt Natsuhi. At least, they weren't drenched in the rain like Auntie Rosa and Maria had been. But there was no way I could say that out loud to Jessica at that moment.
どうなんだ、南條先生。
考察ですな。ほら、ご覧なさい。首にくっきりと何か細いもので締めた跡が残っている。
だな。まさかこっちが主たる死因のわけはねえだろうよ。
The two stake-like weapons, decorated with an occult design that were lying on the ground, had been found driven into Uncle Kraus's thigh area, and near Aunt Natsuhi's calf. When we had found these sticking out of my parents' forehead and chest, we had decided to leave them exactly as they were for the police and to preserve the crime scene. But Jessica no longer cared about such matters, and immediately pulled the stakes out of her parents' forsaken bodies.
これで頭、胸、腹、膝、足の5つをえぐられた死体が出たわけね。くそくそくそ、犯人め、殺してやる、殺してやる。第8の番まではこれで終わったわ。続くは第9の番なの。魔女はよみがえり、誰も生き残れはしない。上等だぜ。魔女がよみがえるってことは、犯人が堂々と姿を現してくれるってことなんだろう。何が誰も生き残れないだ。私が殺してやる。父さんと母さんを殺した犯人を、この
Jessica howled furiously, her emotions laid bare. She might have also howled because I accidentally cut her off. To avoid being crushed by her grief, she could do nothing but resist it with anger.
まだジョージが見つかってないわ。ジェシカちゃんたちはここにいたければいるといい。私は屋敷へ行くわ。
エヴァさん、バラバラに行動してはいけない。みんなで一緒に行動しなくては危険です。
兄さんたちはもうどうしようもないわ。でもジョージはまだどこかで生きているかもしれない。ここで時間を潰してる暇はないのよ。
As Auntie Ava screamed this, Jessica glared at her. Auntie Ava had no more time to bother about the dead. She was more concerned for the safety of her only son, who was yet to be seen.
ジェシカちゃんはここでお父さんとお母さんのそばにいるといい。私はちょっと屋敷に行ってくるわ。バトラ君も南條先生もここにいてくれていい。
After saying this and leaving no time for debate, Auntie Ava rushed out of the arbor. I called out for her to stop, but there was no way she would listen. However, by now, being alone in this situation meant nothing short of death. If we silently watched her leave, it would be the same as letting her die. As long as Auntie Ava was unwilling to stop, we would have no choice but to follow her. And while it may be cruel to say so, Uncle Kraus and Aunt Natsuki were already dead. So there was nothing more we could do for them. In the end, we had no choice but to consult Jessica and head for the mansion together. Fortunately, Jessica stood up. Perhaps she had been able to draw a line under her grief for the moment. But what had surfaced in its place was an expression like a demon.
私がこの手でぶっ殺して必ず敵を取ってやる。行こうぜバトラー。犯人を見つけたら邪魔をするなよ。私が絶対に殺す。
Alright, where's Nanjo at?
俺も
Yeah, where'd he go?
敵があるんだ。
Let's go.
が早いもん勝ちだぜ。
Come on, Jessica. Sick him. Where's that fat fuck?
そうだな。
Oh boy!
Boy!
ぶっ殺してやろうぜ。
Oh wait, I think that was only in the last one where we turned Nanjo into Mickey Mouse, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Did we get any of that in the later recording?
No.
Ah. Well, regardless, to the viewers out there, Nanjo is now Mickey Mouse, and we will be referring to him in that voice. At my words, Jessica finally seemed to feel like someone had sympathized with her emotions. She still had that dark expression, but I felt Jessica regaining some of her sanity. We took off, chasing after Auntie Ava. Through the rose garden, up the stone steps, running at full speed towards the mansion, whose large, intimidating shadow flashed in the lightning. With this, the Epitaph murders had finished the 8th twilight, and now, on the 9th twilight, the witch will revive. None shall be left alive. I will most likely lose my life, but at the very least, I want to burn the truth into my eyes. That was the only thing motivating me to move at that moment. We were able to reunite with Auntie Ava, who was having trouble with the lock to the front door. It seemed that all the blood had risen to her head. That was probably making her fingers clumsy. She seemed she couldn't even handle the simple task of inserting the key into the lock. Then there was a faint sound. The sound of the door unlocking, just as though it had waited for all of the survivors to unite before opening. It seemed to me as though the malicious mansion was trying to swallow all of the remaining humans at once. The stench that erupted outwards at the instant the door opened, could it really be explained as just a smell? It wasn't just the charred smell from Grandfather. I think it may also have contained something like regrets, held by so many dead, including our parents, and all of the servants. I love how he just brushes aside his cremated grandfather. Just like, nope, it's definitely regret. What did it mean
wait.
flowed out?
Do you smell that? It smells like Nanjo.
It's not me, I swear! What did it mean as it billowed out, overwhelming us? Was it the cry of the dead telling us not to enter?
Oh no, Nanjo!
Oh boy, however, Auntie Ava didn't even flinch at something like that. And we, who had to chase after her, were forced to step into the mansion, despite receiving that message.
Georgie? Georgie! 聞こえたら返事をしなさい! Georgie!
Auntie Ava shouted at the top of her lungs. Considering the situation, it's probably far too optimistic to imagine that he is alive. Oof. When we also started following Auntie Ava's example and calling George Aniki's name in loud voices, Auntie Ava found something and stopped walking. She was standing in front of the door to the parlor.
これは南條先生、ちょっと来てもらえるかしら。
Oh boy, I can do important things now.
何事ですかな?
I had heard from the adults about the creepy magic circles that had been drawn on doors such as the one to the parlor. Creepy was the only word to describe that thing, which had been scrawled there with a deep red paint reminiscent of blood that slowly dripped down. However, that had supposedly been there since this morning. Wondering why Auntie Ava, who had seen it already, would think it odd now, Jessica and I stared at the door.
She had seen it already.
Get こんな数字が書かれていた記憶
Get out of here.
ありません。
Leave!
なかったわ。
That was pretty good.
I know.
Good work.
I know it was.
不気味な魔法文字みたいなのは書かれていたけど、数字は書かれていなかった。
From what the two of them said, only a magic circle had been there. Here, wait, what? From what the two of them said, only a magic circle had been there here this morning. Is that?
That's a typo. Probably.
Okay, I thought so. However, right now, there were 8 digits newly written in the upper part of the magic circle. Oh 07151129.
July 7th. Oh, no. July 15th.
July
Fuck.
15th.
November 29th.
Yeah. I didn't know what it meant, but I didn't even want to imagine the thought process of whoever wrote this. I said this last time, but I'm very thankful that that is not a 6-digit number. It was drawn with what was probably the same paint as the magic circle, but it had clearly been written very recently. The way it had dried and the condition of the color was completely different from the magic circle part.
どうせ魔法的な意味があるんだろうぜ。深く考えたって意味なんかあるわけもないさ。
Jessica intentionally spat those words out in an attempt to wipe out how creepy it was.
魔法陣というものかもしれませんが。
Oh, it's a magic square!
ある種の数字遊びに魔除けが宿るという考え方です。どの列を足しても同じ数字になるみたいなものを皆さんも見聞きしたことがおありでしょう。
あれは四角形の中に埋めた数字の話じゃなかった？これは横一列だもの。何の意味があるのかさっぱりだわ。多分ジェシカちゃんの言うのが正解よ。私たちが深く考えたところで意味。
That works. Even though she said that, she probably suspected that it might actually mean something. Using an old receipt or something from inside her pocket, Auntie Ava deftly wrote that number down with a short ballpoint pen. Because an 8-digit number would probably be a little difficult to memorize unless it had been in some kind of pattern. Ellipses.
これ日にちとかな。
日にち？何の話？
Earlier, when we thought we were recording this, John got the date thing right.
Yeah.
Or at least
Well,
explained that it could be.
yeah, when I first saw the numbers, it popped into my head. 0715 1129. It just looks like 2 dates back to back. And then we looked up to see the date format, and Japan has it in year, month, day. So it would be 715 and 1129 if those were 2 dates. But yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's good stuff.
いや偶然だろうけどな。俺の誕生日7月15日なんだ。0715が7月15日を示すのかなって思ったら1129もほらその11月29日って読んだらちょうど語呂がいいかなって思ってよ。
なんでバトラーの誕生日がこんなとこに書いてあるんだよ。そして11月29日ってなんだよ。
俺が知りてえぜ。まあそのたまたまの偶然だろうけどな。そう考えたらなんだか不気味になっちまったぜ。11月29日が誰かの誕生日だったりとかするのか？うちの家族は違うぜ。親父もキリエさんもエンジェも違う。もちろん俺のお袋もだ。
心当たりがありませんな。金蔵さんの誕生日でも源氏さんの誕生日でもないはずだ。
うちの家族も違うわよ。ローザやマリアちゃんでもないわ。うちの家族だって違うぜ。カノン君も違うし、シャノンも違う。私、使用人の人の誕生日にはちゃんとプレゼント渡してるからみんな知ってるけど、 11月29日に誕生日の人間なんて知らないぜ。
Once we started imagining that the 8 digits, which we had thought were meaningless, were actually 2 dates written together, it really started to look that way. However, its true meaning may be something completely different, or there may be no meaning at all.
So I was thinking about this a little, and you know, although it seems like it wouldn't be that simple, just 2 dates, one thing that leads me to believe it is 2 dates is the 715. I don't think it's a coincidence that 715 was written there if it's Valor's birthday, you know?
Right.
So, which leads me to believe that whoever left that message there, it was a message to Battler.
Right. Interesting.
Because Battler's birthday is July 15th. But then, what would 11/29 be? What's that day?
This is all taking place in October of
Yes.
1986, right?
Yes.
So, there's no real connection to that except that November is the month after. And that's it.
Yeah, I mean, it could be somebody's birthday, but they already ran through everybody's birthdays, and they said it's none of them. They said,
Yeah.
Battler said it's none of his families, it's not Rudolph's, Kyrie's, Anji's, and he said it's not any of the other people's birthdays either, so it might be a date that's not a birthday, but something significant that happened on that day.
Or something that is going to happen. Because, well, yeah, we're not going to spoil anything, but...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways.
So, anyway, since we don't have any real clue, it's probably pointless to stand around here analyzing it.
Yeah.
More important was the inside of the parlor. This morning, behind each of the doors with a magic circle drawn on them, there had been the body of a victim. And now that a number had been newly added to the door...
Georgie!
What new thing had been added inside the parlor?
Oh, one dead body coming right up.
When Auntie Ava tried to open it, she felt the resistance of the lock. She
Prepared by
immediately took out a
Nanjo.
master key and put it in the keyhole. Oh boy, I really hope no one's dead in here. As soon as she opened the door, Auntie Ava let out a high-pitched scream and ran inside. That alone was enough to tell us what had happened inside the room. Dr. Nanjo and I looked at each other, and I shook my head slightly as we entered the parlor.
Georgie! Georgie! しっかりして! Georgie! Nanjo sensei, 早く!
George Aniki had fallen alongside Shanna-chan's body. His chest was stained bright red. And from his still opened eyes, all my condolences to Auntie Ava, but I couldn't pick up any signs of life. After moving to take his pulse, Dr. Nanjo shook his head, wordlessly reporting that George Aniki was dead.
I can confirm he's dead because I killed him. Oh!
Nanjo gave a quiet, sad, "Oh boy!" Brushing him aside, Auntie Ava once again crouched beside George Aniki, started crying at the top of her lungs. With this, Aniki's death, one thing had become certain. The murders would not be ending at the 8th twilight. The epitaph was going to be carried out in its complete form, including the 9th twilight, and none will be left alive. I'm really starting to lose the plot. For some reason, Auntie Ava's half-insane cries and appearance actually made me cool down. Crestfallen and exhausted, I flopped onto the sofa and plunked my feet on top of the table. Maybe all of these murders have paralyzed my heart. Instead of fright, the stronger emotion I'm feeling is one of complete confusion. Dad and Kirie-san had died, and starting with the servants, people have been killed off one by one. And at one hell of a pace, too. I don't know what time the first murder started, but I'd say we're probably being killed at a rate of about 1 person an hour. We believe that the boat will come for us around 9 tomorrow. There's still a full 12 hours until then. How many more sacrifices to the witch would there have to be for us to survive? With the 4 of us, if one goes each hour, we won't last any longer than 4 hours. It's not clear anymore if we'll even last until midnight tonight. Yesterday, after lunch, we came into this parlor. At about the time that the discussion had turned to the black tea that Auntie Rosa said she bought, we kids had started talking about going to take a walk. Maria was fooling around. Didn't Shannon-Jen bring us some cookies? She said that Kumasawa-san had baked them or something.
They had mackerel in them.
Mackerel cookies! I'd probably have laughed my ass off if there had actually been a cooked mackerel one mixed in with them. That's right. I'll never hear Kumasawa Ba-chan's mackerel jokes again, will I? Oh yeah. If I only remember stuff about Kumasawa Ba-chan, that wouldn't be fair to everyone else. Why did Dad and Kirie-san even go outside? It's not like we die from being without food for a day. So why did Gluttony get a hold of them and make them go to get food? I'll bet it was my fearless dad who started complaining about being hungry. Kirie-san, you were supposed to be the brakes for my reckless dad. Why didn't you stop him? And what about your daughter, Anji? She's only 6 years old. You weren't thinking of entrusting her to me, were you? At this point, it's doubtful that even I will be able to leave this island alive.
やめなさい。こんな時に争ってどうするんですか。ジェシカさん、やめなさい。
Yamero! Some kind of commotion was interrupting my thoughts. I looked up to see what it was and saw that Jessica and Auntie Ava had started fighting each other at some point.
Ah, who cares?
No.
They're just brawling.
That's the best way to solve your problems. A fist fight while one person has a gun that's loaded. No, maybe I should say that Jessica was grabbing at Auntie Ava. You might want to lift the controller off the table.
あんたのお父さんたちなんか知るわけないでしょ。ゲストハウスの1階にいたのは誰だよ。エヴァおばさんだ。1階のロビーには父さんと母さんと、そしてエヴァおばさんがいた。生き残ったのは誰だ。エヴァおばさんだけだ。どうして。あんたが犯人だからに決まってるじゃないか。父さんと母さんを殺して外へ運び出して白々しく鍵を閉めて魔女の仕業なんかを装いやがったんだ。じゃあジョージはどうしていなくなったのよ。1階には降りてきてないのよ。じゃあ2階でいなくなったっていうの。2階には誰がいたのよ。あなたたちがいたんじゃない。あなたは知ってたんでしょ。ジョージがこっそりゲストハウスを抜け出すのを。それを自分は何も知らないような顔を抜け抜けとあんたがジョージを止めててくれればジョージを。
やめなさいというのにジェシカさんはずっといとこ部屋にいました。そしてエヴァさんもずっと1階のロビーにいました。そして2人とも何も悪くない。ただ家族を失って悲しいだけなんです。犯人なんか誰もいない。どこにもいない。ただただ魔女のせいなだけなんです。だからお二人で憎み合うのはやめなさい。
The witch's fault, is it? I wonder if that's a good way to mediate things for now. Yes, I finally understand the meaning of all of the doors and windows having been locked from the inside when 3 whole people evaporated from the guest house. This is what they were after. Making us think the culprit was inside, and causing this ugly mutual hatred. Had to be the culprit's, the witch's goal. But in that case, how had the culprit locked it from the outside? It's certainly true that the master key had been stolen when Dad's group was attacked, but the doors and windows to the guest house had been constructed so that you couldn't lock them from the outside no matter how hard you tried. So that master key shouldn't mean anything for the guest house locked room. Jessica and Auntie Ava were turning their sadness at losing their blood relatives into anger at the person in front of them. Dr. Nanjo was trying to step between them. and I sat haphazardly in a sofa staring up at the ceiling, thinking about things that didn't even matter anymore with a worn-out expression. I just couldn't believe that this was the same parlor that had been so warm and pleasant midday yesterday, for just a short time before the typhoon hit. Ooh.
Here we go.
And we're off.
Oh boy.
The sudden sound of a gunshot shook me out of my half-asleep trance. Smoke was rising out of the barrel of the gun Auntie Ava held. Jessica was rolling around on the floor, covering both her eyes. Auntie Ava and Dr. Nanjo were looking down at her, shocked. Oh no, this is... this is not ideal!
大丈夫ですかジェシカさんジェシカさん
私のせいじゃないわよ。あんたがよせっていうのに突っかかってくるから。
おいおい、どうしたってんだ。何事なんだ。
Jessica had grabbed at Auntie Ava and it had turned into a scuffle. They had then started fighting over the gun Auntie Ava had been holding. And some movement or other caused the trigger to be pulled. I didn't know the details about whether the bullet had grazed her or whether she had been burned by the discharge, but whatever the case, Jessica was covering both of her eyes, screaming in pain and rolling around on the floor.
大丈夫落ち着いて大した怪我ではありませんぞ気をしっかり
Dr. Nanjo lent Jessica his shoulder, saying that he would tend to her in the servant room. Oh boy, I'll tend to you alright! The servant room in this mansion apparently had a bed and a first aid kit, and was able to function as an infirmary.
父さんと母さんの仇殺してやる殺してやる私は
ジェシカさん傷に触りますからそれ以上騒がないでさあ使用人室に行きましょう
Jessica still continued to curse Auntie Ava as her parents' murderer. It seemed that Auntie Ava couldn't conceal her shock at the fact that she had pulled the trigger, even if it had been an accident.
私のせいじゃないわよあの子が掴みかかってきたからこんなことに私は殺してなんかないわよそれよりジョージは誰が殺したのそうよジョージは誰が殺したのよジョージジョージ私は悪くない私は悪くない
待てよエヴァおばさん一人になるな
I didn't know whether it was because Auntie Ava couldn't stand her mistake, or whether it was because she had lost herself to anger at the person who had killed her only son. Or whether it was both of those all mixed together. In any case, she ran out into the corridor, yelling, fearful, and shouting. I was also worried about Jessica's condition, but anyway, right then, I couldn't leave Auntie Ava alone. Why would she go off on her own in this mansion, of all places? Is she suicidal? Dr. Nanjo took Jessica towards the servant room. I chased after Auntie Ava, dashing into the depths of the mansion. After sitting Jessica on the servant room bed...
Oh
Nanjo
boy,
told
we're
her several
alone now! Time to murder!
Nanjo told her several times not to rub her eyes and examine the affected area. The barrel had probably been near her eyes. There was a possibility that the flames from the discharge had damaged her corneas. There was no threat to her life, but it would probably be necessary to have a suitable doctor look at her as soon as humanly possible. But what about as soon as a witch is possible? I don't know. How would you say that? Witchedly possible?
Witchedly possible! Woohoo!
Nanjo applied emergency first aid, covering the affected area with gauze and wrapping it with a bandage. As a result, Jessica completely lost her field of vision.
いいですかな。傷が痛んだりうずいたりするでしょうが、絶対に書いたり揉んだりしてはなりませんぞ。明日になったらすぐに眼科の先生のところへ行きましょう。
But is that ophthalmologist? Is that
Yeah,
how you say that?
ophthalmologist.
Yeah, I didn't know there was a thing.
Let me see. Ophthalmologist?
Yeah.
本当は私を殺すつもりだったんだ。
Ophthalmologist is...
I would assume an eye doctor of some sort.
Oh, diagnose and treat eye injuries.
Ah.
Yes.
ほんのちょっと角度が悪かったら今頃殺されてた。絶対にあいつを警察へ突き出してやる。
エヴァさんはそんなことはしませんぞ。あれは事故です。
事故なもんか。あいつが父さんと母さんを殺したんだ。この島には19人目も魔女もいるわけがない。あいつが全ての犯人なんだ。ゲストハウスの1階にはあいつだけがいた。父さんと母さんを殺し、それを見てしまったジョージ兄さんも口封じに殺したに違いない。じいさまや使用人の人たちだってそうさ。きっとあいつは夕べの親族会議の途中でこっそり抜け出し、みんなを
もしそうならば警察が調べればすぐにわかることです。警察はすごいですぞ。鑑識の手にかかればわからぬことなどありません。私たちは誰かを疑ったり恨んだりする必要などないのです。すべて警察が解決してくれます。
Will they though?
だからジェシカさんは今は体を休め、目を楽にすることに専念するのです。あまり眉間にシワを寄せては目にはもちろん美容にもよくありませんぞ。
Indeed, when Jessica had grown agitated in her verbal abuse of Ava, she had naturally started glaring and the pressure on her eyes hurt her. Jessica herself soon realized that the more she talked, the more the wound would hurt, and regardless of whether she had overcome her suspicions of Ava, she regained her composure for the time being.
あいつが殺したんだ。父さんや母さん。
No, that was me! But I'm not going to tell you that!
Oh, I also killed Cannon! She had heard that Cannon had been killed in the chapelle. Jessica still hadn't seen his face after he had died. Jessica was now less fearful about the fact that she might go blind, and more frightened that the police would carry Cannon's corpse away while she still couldn't see, and that she would have to say her final farewell without being able to see his face. Her anger at the culprit and her sadness at the death of the person she had liked. Those mixed emotions provoked her tear ducts. But, right now, tears were actually painful for her, so she wasn't even permitted to leisurely remember the late Cannon's face. Jessica could do nothing but sit on the bed and let her head droop, withstanding the pain.
さて、今度はエヴァさんの方が心配です。気に病まれていなければいいのですが。
Letting out a small sigh of relief that Jessica had calmed down for the time being, he stuck his head out into the hallway and looked for any sign of the others coming back. They met eyes.
Hi! Ava?
Hello there!
Hi!
Nanjo, unable to understand who this person was bewildered for an instant.
視力を失った人間って反魔法力も対魔法抵抗力もゼロになるんですって。つまり今のあんたはアイソレーテッドポーン。意味がわかるかしら。
何
Nondesto. There was no possible way that Nanjo could have understood who the person in front of him was. And there was certainly no possible way that he could ever have understood what she just said.
南條先生、どうしたんです？
Unable to see, Jessica couldn't tell what was going on except by whatever voice she heard. But since she had heard Nanjo say something with an uneasy tone, she tightened up, thinking that something bad might have happened.
やめてくれ。殺さないでくれ。わしには病弱の孫がおる。ここでは死ねんのだ。頼む。見逃してくれ。
I love the way that
Nanjo's just getting slaughtered there.
scream gets cut off.
Nanjo sensei! Nanjo sensei!
I don't even think she's attacking him there. He just goes. Jessica couldn't do anything except call out from the bed.
Nanjo was dead.
Judging by the tone of his voice, Nanjo was dead in the corridor, being dead. And he was dead. John did exactly this last time we thought we were recording.
Yes.
So, we're continuing the tradition. There was no doubt that at this very moment, he was dead.
His life was dead.
Not he was dead, his life was dead.
第9の晩に魔女は蘇り、誰も生き残れはしない。
The witch pointed the end of her gold staff at Nanjo.
He was dead.
Even though he didn't know what she was planning to do, Nanjo died.
Oh, nothing you should worry about. Old MacDonald had a farm.
Yeah.
Oh.
Bang.
Nanjo was dead.
When did Spike get here? The sharp sound echoed. And tapered to a point just as sharp, the elongated tip of the golden staff was stuck straight into Nanjo's forehead. Oh boy, this isn't good! Jessica, who only had her ears to help her try to grasp what was happening, had no clue what was going on. But even so, she was able to realize that with that sound, Nanjo had died. And the person who had killed him was now dead. I mean, in the corridor, right in front of the servant room. Furthermore, since she couldn't see, she wouldn't even be able to run away, much less resist. Upon discovering that she was in a life or death situation, caught like a rat in a trap, Jessica felt her blood run cold.
ああ、ジェシカ。かわいそうにね。目を怪我しちゃったのね。なら、あなたは逃げることもできないわね。今から南條の死体でたっぷり遊ぶわ。それに飽きたら、次はあなたを殺してたっぷり遊んであげる。
Once again, not a really good way to phrase that if you don't want to sound like a necrophile.
Yeah.
いいえ、せっかく目が見えないんだもの。殺してからだけじゃない。殺す前にもたっぷり遊んであげるわね。そこでしばらく震えながら待ってなさいね。南條の死体で私がどんな風に遊ぶのかをたっぷり想像しながら。
F.
F in the chat. Struck with fear, Jessica let out a frail scream. She really wanted to scream in a much louder voice, trying to get someone to help her. But she couldn't. When a person is faced with true fear, it clogs up their throat. Right now, Jessica could barely even breathe. She searched around with her hands, trying to find some way to escape. But even though she knew this room well, just being unable to see made it like a locked room of darkness. You just can't escape those locked rooms, man.
Yeah,
That's all this thing
those
is.
pesky locked rooms of darkness.
She bumped into some shelves or or something. I don't know, she bumped into some shelves or something. And some tins of sweets and bottles and things fell down from them, hitting her on the head. As she was now, even protecting her head to block them wasn't working out. She was becoming painfully aware of how powerless humans become just by losing their sense of sight. Of course, she had no time to appreciate that. She crawled around as best she could, trying to escape that place. But she kept bumping into things that she didn't understand, getting hit by various falling objects. And it felt to her like the entire room was alive, bullying her and refusing to let her escape. Excuse me. Then she heard footsteps from the presence in the hallway, and then a voice. The person had probably peered into the room since Jessica was making so much noise.
にぎやかね。レディーならおとなしくベッドに座って待っていなさい。令状にふさわしい素敵な真っ赤な死に装束を与えてやるんだから。あなたを見つけた人が失神してしまいそうになるくらいのね。
Just a short while ago, she had sworn that she would kill the culprit if she found them. However, she was now all too powerless.
Oh.
Good lord. She couldn't do anything except let out feeble screams and crawl around on the floor, bumping her head into the bed and the legs of the desk. In the corridor, as the witch thought of how to toy with Nanjo's life, a single gold butterfly secretly watched that scene from the corner of the hallway. It was Beato, who had barely escaped with her life once before.
We did it! We're here! We've caught up!
We got it! Nice.
Oh yeah.